The sky over West Africa in 2005 was stained with smoke and fire. Gray clouds billowed, blending with the roar of artillery and the hiss of rockets. At an altitude of 500 meters, Michael Thompson, a 42-year-old white American United Nations pilot, gripped the control stick of the rescue helicopter tightly. With sandy blonde hair streaked with silver and piercing blue eyes, Michael embodied calm in the storm of war. 15 years of flying through conflict zones from Bosnia to Somalia had forged him into a decisive man known among his team by the nickname Cold Steel. But today, the mission in this war-ravaged rural area tested even his seasoned courage. The UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter trembled to the rhythm of its rotor blades, carrying medicine and food to a refugee camp 20 miles away. Michael glanced at his watch, 14:37. He had to complete the flight before dusk, when rebel gunmen usually intensified their attacks. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rang out. A stray missile fired from the ground detonated just a few meters from the rotor. The shock wave sent the helicopter into a lurch, and the control panel lit up with red warning lights. Michael clenched his teeth, hands tightening on the stick, struggling to keep the aircraft steady. "Come on, don't give up," he muttered, as if speaking to the helicopter. But luck did not smile upon him. A piece of shrapnel from the blast pierced the auxiliary engine, causing the helicopter to lose altitude rapidly. Michael had no choice. He searched for an open patch of land amid the ruins of a town erased by war, a place that had once been a bustling trade center, now reduced to crumbling walls and charred rooftops. With expert skill, he performed an emergency landing, a cloud of dust rising into the air. As the rotor blades came to a halt, distant gunfire echoed, reminding him that he was at the heart of hell. Michael quickly checked the communications equipment, which was useless. He reached for the handgun strapped to his thigh, opened the cockpit door, and stepped outside. The air was thick with the stench of gunpowder and ash. The surrounding buildings, some still smoldering, told a story of merciless destruction. He knew he had to find shelter and contact the rescue team, but first, he needed to get his bearings. His steps slowed when his eyes caught an unexpected sight among the rubble. A young black girl, no older than 8, stood at the corner of an alley beside a crumbling wall. She stood silently, her bare feet gripping the debris-strewn ground. Her tattered clothes were dust-covered, but she clutched a makeshift doll made of rags and rope in her tiny hands. Her large, round eyes held a strange resilience, as if war could not extinguish the fire within her soul. Michael froze, forgetting the sound of gunfire growing nearer. Something about the girl tightened his chest. He stepped forward and knelt to meet her at eye level. "Hello there," he said gently, smiling through his dust-covered face. "What's your name?" The girl looked at him, eyes wary, but didn't answer immediately. After a moment, she whispered Zara. Her voice was soft but clear, carrying a strength far beyond her frail frame. "Zara." Michael repeated, feeling the name strike something profound within a reminder of something he had lost. He thought of Emily, his 6-year-old daughter, who had died of leukemia 3 years ago. Emily had also had those bright eyes, always shimmering with hope, even in her final days. The grief of losing his child still smoldered within him, and now, looking at Zara, he saw a part of Emily, not in skin or features, but in that unbreakable spirit, that unwavering light. "Are you here alone?" he asked, glancing around for any sign of adults. Zara nodded, her fingers tightening around the doll. "My family, they're gone," she said, trembling but not crying. Michael felt the weight of those words. He knew the war had taken countless families, but hearing it from a child's mouth tore at his heart. Gunfire rang closer, pulling Michael back to the present. He looked at Zara, knowing that leaving her here was a death sentence. A bold thought flashed through his mind. "Zara, would you like to come with me? I'll take you somewhere safe." He pointed to the United Nations insignia on his uniform, hoping it would offer some reassurance. Zara looked at him, then down at the doll in her hands, as if weighing the world's fate. At last she nodded, dropped the doll to the ground, and held her small, dirty hand toward him. Michael grasped Zara's hand, feeling the fragile warmth of the little girl. He led her back to the helicopter, hoping he could make temporary repairs to take off. The fiery red sunset stretched over the ruins like a promise of a new beginning. Michael didn't yet know that this moment would change his life forever. He was no longer just a rescue pilot. He was now a bearer of hope for Zara, and perhaps Zara would become the one to bring hope back to him. The fiery red sunset slowly faded into the West African night, leaving behind faint streaks of light over the ruins of a town devastated by war. Michael Thompson, a 42-year-old United Nations pilot, held tightly to the hand of Zara, the 8-year-old black girl, who had just trusted him. Gunfire still echoed in the distance, but at this moment, the world seemed to shrink down to just the two of them. Michael knew that leaving Zara here meant abandoning her to a cruel fate. But taking her with him, he understood, was more than just a rescue mission. It was a commitment that would change both of their lives. Michael led Zara back to the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter, its engine still hot from the emergency landing. He quickly checked the auxiliary engine was damaged, but the main engine was still operational enough to make a short flight to the nearest rescue outpost. "Sit here, Zara," he said, pointing to the co-pilot's seat. The girl climbed up, her tiny hands gripping the edge of the seat, her wide eyes staring at him with a mixture of fear and trust. Michael buckled her in, then turned to the control panel, praying for a miracle to lift them off the ground. As the helicopter vibrated and slowly lifted off, another explosion erupted nearby, sending dirt flying. Michael clenched his teeth, gripping the controls tightly to keep the aircraft steady. Zara held onto her seat, but didn't cry or scream. Her resilience stunned him. In the dim light of the cockpit, Michael glanced at Zara, and once again saw the image of Emily, his daughter who had passed away 3 years earlier from leukemia. Emily had looked at him that same way, with unwavering faith that her father would protect her. The pain of loss surged again, but this time it brought with it a new sense of purpose. After 20 tense minutes in the air, Michael landed safely at a temporary United Nations base, 15 miles from the ruined town. Rescue workers rushed over with water and blankets. A nurse named Zara, an African-American woman with a warm smile, wrapped a blanket around Zara's shoulders and checked her for injuries. "This little girl is something special," Zara whispered to Michael, noting the determination in Zara's eyes. Michael nodded, but a bold thought had already begun to take shape. He couldn't let Zara be sent to a refugee camp or handed over to the orphan care system. With strength far beyond her years, this girl deserved a better life. In the command tent, Michael met with Lieutenant Colonel Adekunle, a Nigerian officer in charge of the base. The girl said her family was killed during a village raid, Adekunle recounted in a heavy voice. She survived by hiding in a wine cellar and was fed by a stranger for several weeks. Michael listened, feeling the weight of the story. Zara wasn't just a victim of war. She was a symbol of survival, of unyielding hope. "I want to adopt her," Michael said firmly. Adekunle looked at him surprised. "You know that's a serious commitment, don't you? She'll need more than just a roof over her head." Michael nodded. He knew. After Emily's death, he had lived in solitude, with only flights and memories for company. His wife Claire had left him unable to bear the grief of their child's passing. Michael had believed his heart was closed for good, but Zara had opened a new door. He remembered his promise to Emily in her final days. "I'll do something good, my love." Now that promise echoed in him, urging him to give Zara the chance Emily never had. The adoption process was anything but simple. Michael worked with UN personnel and the U.S. Embassy to obtain papers for Zara. He spent hours in the administrative tent, filling out forms and answering interviews about his ability to care for a child. "I'm not wealthy," he told a social worker, "but I have a home in Virginia, a stable job, and I'll spend my life protecting her." Meanwhile, Zara stayed with Sarah, learning her first English words and drawing pictures of her old village of green fields and evenings of song around the fire. A month later, with help from Adekunle and Sarah, Michael received temporary approval to bring Zara to the U.S. On the day they left the base, Zara wore a clean shirt gifted by Sarah, clutching a small backpack filled with a few personal items. Michael knelt and looked into her eyes. "Zara, are you ready? We're going to a new place where there's no more war." Zara nodded, though a flicker of anxiety passed through her eyes. She hugged Sarah, her first real friend at the base, then held Michael's hand as they boarded the transport plane. As the plane took off, Michael looked down at the shrinking landscape of West Africa. He knew the road ahead would be full of challenges. Becoming the father of a child from a different culture, helping her heal from the trauma of war, and facing prejudice within American society. But as Zara leaned her head on his shoulder, breathing steadily in sleep, Michael felt a rare sense of peace. He hadn't just saved Zara from war. She was keeping him from loneliness. Amid the rumble of the engines, Michael whispered, "We'll make it, Zara, together." The transport plane landed at Dulles International Airport in Virginia on an August afternoon in 2005, carrying Michael Thompson and Zara, the 8-year-old girl he had just adopted from the war-torn region of West Africa. Michael, a 42-year-old white American man with sandy blonde hair streaked with silver, descended the aeroplane stairs, holding Zara's hand tightly. The little black girl, small in her oversized shirt, gifted by Nurse Sarah, looked around with wide eyes filled with curiosity and anxiety. After months of battling legal procedures and war memories, they had finally set foot on American soil, an entirely new world for Zara. Michael's home in suburban Fairfax, Virginia, was a 2-story wooden house surrounded by green fields and old oak trees. For Michael, it had once been a place of happiness with his wife and daughter Emily, but also a place filled with the sorrow of Emily's death and his divorce from Claire. Now this house would become Zara's new home. As they stepped inside, Zara paused at the doorway, fingers clutching her small backpack. "This is your home," Michael said warmly. "Would you like to see your room?" Zara nodded, but her eyes glanced over the family photos on the wall, pictures of Michael and Emily smiling brightly, as if silently wondering whether she belonged here. Zara's room, once Emily's, had been carefully cleaned and prepared by Michael. He had repainted the soft blue walls, placed a new bed, and added a small bookshelf with a few children's books. Zara stepped inside, gently touching the star-printed blanket, and then turned to Michael. "It's pretty," she whispered, her voice still uncertain with newly learned English. Michael smiled, but inside he was worried. He knew raising a girl from a different culture carrying the scars of war wouldn't be easy. He could only hope that time would help them become a family. The first days in America were full of discoveries for Zara. She was amazed by the smooth asphalt roads, the car horns, and the brightly lit supermarkets overflowing with shelves of food. One time at a grocery store, Zara stood frozen in front of the fruit section, staring at the bright red apples as if they had come from another planet. Michael, pushing the cart behind her, laughed when he saw her sniff one of the apples. "Do you like it?" "Let's get a whole bag," he said, and Zara nodded, her first smile blooming since they left West Africa. But it wasn't all joy. At night, Zara often woke up startled from nightmares, gunfire images of her burning village, and her mother's face haunting the darkness. One night, Michael heard quiet sobs from Zara's room. He rushed in and found her curled under the blanket, clutching her knees. "Zara, it's Daddy," he said, kneeling by her bed. He wasn't sure if he should call himself Daddy, but the word came out naturally. Zara looked at him, eyes full of tears, then crawled into his arms. Michael held her and hummed a lullaby he used to sing to Emily until Zara drifted back to sleep. At that moment, he felt a fragile but real bond forming between them. To help Zara adjust, Michael turned to Mrs. Helen Carter, a retired black teacher who lived just a few houses down. Mrs. Helen, with her silver hair and gentle smile, had once taught literature at the local high school and was an active member of the African American community in Fairfax. When she met Zara, she immediately adored the girl. "You remind me of myself as a child. Curious but strong," she said, handing Zara a picture book of African folk tales. Zara hugged the book, her eyes lighting up as she saw familiar illustrations with colors and patterns from her homeland. Mrs. Helen became Zara's confidant, teaching her how to read English and sharing stories about African American history. One afternoon, she took Zara to the backyard and showed her how to plant sunflower seeds. "See this little seed? One day it'll grow into a tall flower," she said. Zara nodded as if she understood that she too was being planted in a new life. Watching from a distance, Michael felt deeply grateful for Mrs. Helen. He realized that as a white man, he needed the support of people like her to help Zara stay connected to her cultural roots. But the new life came with its challenges. One day when Michael took Zara to the park, an elderly man looked at them curiously and asked, "Is she adopted?" His tone wasn't hostile, but the question made Michael tense up. He gripped Zara's hand tighter and replied, "She's my daughter." Zara, though she didn't understand everything, sensed the tension. On the way home, she asked Daddy, "Why do people look at me strange?" Michael pulled the car over and turned to her. "Zara, some people are curious because we look different, but what matters is, we're a family. Do you understand?" Zara nodded, but her eyes showed a flicker of confusion. As the days passed, Michael and Zara began to build shared routines. They had toast and jam for breakfast, watched cartoons on Saturday nights, and took walks through the fields behind the house. Zara gradually opened up more, telling Michael scattered memories of her time in West Africa, singing by the fire, the smell of earth after rain, and the warm hands of her mother. Michael listened, taking notes so he could one day help her reconnect with her roots. He knew the journey ahead was long, but each smile from Zara, each moment they shared, was one more step toward becoming a true family. Autumn 2005. Draped Fairfax, Virginia in a golden coat of oak leaves. Zara, the 8-year-old black girl, adopted by Michael Thompson from the war-torn region of West Africa, had now lived in America for 2 months. With its bookshelf and star-patterned blanket, Michael's wooden house gradually became where Zara felt safe. However, a new challenge emerged when Michael enrolled her at Oakwood Elementary School. For Zara, the school was not just a place to learn letters, it was an unfamiliar world where she had to face curious glances, whispered comments, and haunting memories of war. On the first day of school, Zara stood at the gate clutching her backpack, her wide eyes scanning the children running around. Michael, the 42-year-old white man with silver-streaked blonde hair, knelt beside her. "You'll do great, Zara," he said, masking his worry. He had read about the challenges immigrant children, especially black children, face when integrating into American schools. But he hoped Zara's resilience, the same strength that helped her survive the war, would guide her here. Zara nodded, but her tiny hand gripped her backpack strap, like a lifeline. Her homeroom teacher, Ms. Laura, a middle-aged woman with a gentle smile, welcomed Zara with a hug. "Hi, Zara. I heard you like drawing, right? Laura asked, pointing to the corner of the classroom filled with crayons. Zara gave a shy smile, but as she stepped inside, she felt the stares of her classmates. A brown-haired boy. Tommy whispered to a friend, "That girl talks funny." Her English was still limited, but Zara understood enough for her cheeks to burn. She lowered her head and slipped into the back seat, trying to make herself as small as possible. Zara was intelligent and diligent, but her differences made her a target. One day at recess, a group of students surrounded her asking, "Where are you from? Is Africa full of lions?" Zara tried to respond, halting, "No, there's Village River." But when a girl laughed and said, "You sound like a cartoon," Zara ran to a corner of the playground and covered her face. She missed the games in her village where no one mocked her voice. Homesickness mixed with loneliness weighed heavily on her heart. Michael noticed the change in Zara. She spoke less and often sat quietly in her room, drawing pictures of scorched West African fields. One evening, Michael asked, "How was school today, sweetheart?" Zara just shook her head, eyes fixed on the floor. Michael felt helpless. He had once piloted helicopters through gunfire, but comforting an 8-year-old child felt like an entirely different battlefield. He called Mrs. Helen Carter, the black neighbor, who had once helped Zara plant sunflower seeds. "Helen, I don't know how to help her," he confessed. "She's lost, and I'm afraid I don't understand enough." Mrs. Helen came by the next morning bringing a plate of cookies and a book about Rosa Parks. She sat beside Zara on the sofa, her voice calm and warm. "You know I used to get teased for my curly hair and dark skin too, but I learned you don't have to be like everyone else to belong." Zara listened, her fingers trailing across the pages. "But I miss home," she whispered. Helen hugged her gently and said, "Missing home is natural, but you have a new family now, and your daddy loves you very much." Zara looked at Michael standing in the doorway, and for the first time in days, she smiled at him. But Zara's biggest challenge wasn't just school, but the nightmares. One night, Michael awoke to screams from Zara's room. He ran in to find her curled up on the bed, drenched in sweat. "Mama, Mama," Zara murmured, her eyes wide with fear. Michael held her, feeling her small body tremble. "You're safe now, Zara. Daddy's here," he said, his voice thick with emotion. This time he decided to share a piece of his past. "I once lost my daughter Emily. I know what it's like to miss someone. But you and I have each other, don't we?" Zara nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. She burrowed into his arms, and for the first time felt her pain was understood. Michael began looking for ways to help Zara cope with her war memories. He contacted a therapist, Dr. Amara, a Nigerian woman who worked with immigrant children. Amara suggested Michael encourage Zara to draw or write about her memories as a release form. Michael bought her a notebook and colored pencils. That evening, Zara drew a picture of her mother beside a shimmering river. "Mama liked singing," she said softly. Michael listened, writing down every detail, determined to help Zara preserve the beauty amidst the pain. Meanwhile, Mrs. Helen invited Zara to a local church's African children's group. There, Zara met Aisha, a 9-year-old girl from Ghana, who taught her how to jump rope and shared stories about Africa. Aisha became Zara's first real friend in America, helping her build confidence. One day when Tommy teased Zara again on the playground, Aisha stepped in and said, "She knows more than you, Tommy. She lived through war." Zara smiled, feeling less alone. On the weekend, Michael took Zara to a fall fair in Fairfax. They ate cotton candy and played ring toss, and for the first time, Zara laughed out loud when Michael made a silly face. As the fair lights glowed, Zara held Michael's hand and said, "Daddy, I like it here." Michael looked at her, heart full of warmth. He knew challenges still lay ahead, But Zara's smile proved they were getting closer to becoming a real family. In the twinkling lights, Michael whispered, "I like it too, Zara, very much." Spring 2007 painted Fairfax, Virginia in brilliant hues of blooming cherry blossoms. Zara, the 10-year-old black girl adopted by Michael Thompson from the war-torn region of West Africa, had now lived in America for nearly 2 years. The nightmares of war had become less frequent thanks to the support of Michael, Mrs. Helen, and therapist Dr. Amara. Oakwood Elementary was no longer a foreign place, especially since Zara had befriended Aisha, the Ghanaian girl who always stood up for her. But what truly made Zara shine wasn't just social adaptation. Her intelligence and passion for engineering had begun to blossom. It all began one afternoon in Michael's garage. Zara, neatly braided, squatted beside an old radio Michael planned to throw away. "Dad, I can fix this," she declared, gleaming. Michael, the 44-year-old white man with a skeptical smile, handed her a screwdriver. "Let's see, little engineer," he said, thinking it was just child's play. But within an hour, Zara had disassembled the radio, identified a loose wire, and got it working again. Jazz music flowing from the local station. Michael's jaw dropped. He couldn't believe a 10-year-old had accomplished something he, a pilot familiar with machinery, often struggled with. Zara's curiosity didn't stop at radios. She dug through the garage and disassembled bicycles, alarm clocks, and even the lawnmower to understand how they worked. Michael recognized her potential and bought her a mechanical toy set with gears and small motors. Zara spent hours building models of suspension bridges and battery-powered cars, mumbling simple equations she had learned from her school science books. "Dad, this is like my village." "There was a bridge over the river," she said, pointing at her bridge model. Michael smiled, but inside, he knew Zara was doing more than just playing. She was inventing. Mrs. Helen Carter, the elderly black neighbor with silver hair, recognized Zara's talent when the girl brought her bridge model to her house. "Sweetheart, this isn't just a toy," Helen said, her eyes lighting up. "You could be an engineer, build real bridges one day." Helen, who once taught literature, but had been married to a civil engineer, understood the importance of nurturing scientific passion. She signed Zara up for a local STEM club, science, technology, engineering, and math, at the library, where kids learned basic coding and performed experiments. Though busy with his work as a UN pilot, Michael supported it wholeheartedly and drove Zara to the club every Saturday. At the STEM club, Zara thrived. She learned how to write simple code on a computer, built robots from Lego Mindstorms, and experimented with circuits. Her instructor Jamal, a 30-year-old black engineer, was impressed by her abilities. "This girl picks up concepts faster than high schoolers," he told Michael. One day, Zara and Aisha built a solar-powered robot car for the school science fair. As their car sped across the track and beat other models, the crowd of students cheered. Standing next to Aisha, Zara beamed for the first time, feeling like she truly belonged. But not everything went smoothly. Some parents at the school, including Tommy's mother, the boy who once teased Zara, complained that the STEM club was favoring her because she was an immigrant. "My child is smart too. Why isn't he getting the same attention?" she said during a PTA meeting. Michael, present at the meeting, stood up and responded in a calm but firm voice. "Zara works hard and has talent. She deserves this opportunity, just like any other child." Mrs. Helen, seated beside him, added, "We should be proud of a student like Zara, not envious." The argument settled, but Michael realized that prejudice remained an obstacle for his daughter, even in small forms. Michael began spending more time with her in the garage to encourage Zara, where they fixed bicycles and built models together. One evening, Zara pointed at her suspension bridge model and said, "Dad, I want to build a bridge in my old village so people can cross the river more easily. Michael was moved, realizing Zara's dream wasn't just technical, it was about giving back to her homeland. He promised to help her study and pursue that dream. "You'll make it, Zara," he hugged her. "I believe in you." Mrs. Helen played a vital role too. She gave Zara a book about George Washington Carver, the renowned black scientist, and told stories about black women like Katherine Johnson, who helped send humans to the moon. "You can be like them," Helen said. Zara hugged the book and began dreaming of a bigger future. In her notebook she wrote, "I will be an engineer. I will build bridges." Those scribbled lines were the declaration of a little girl finding her purpose. At the end of spring, the county-wide science fair was held. Zara and Aisha brought their solar-powered car, which is now upgraded with light sensors. The entire room applauded when the judges announced Zara as the first-place winner. Michael, standing at the back, felt his eyes sting. He thought of Emily, who once loved science, but never had the chance to grow up. Now Zara was carrying that torch. She ran into his arms, shouting, "Dad, I did it." Michael whispered, "You make me proud, Zara." In the spring sunshine, Michael and Zara walked out of the science fair hand in hand. He knew the road ahead would be long, filled with studies, prejudice, and lingering memories of war. But like the blossoming cherry blossoms, Zara's talent was proof that the little girl he had rescued from war was growing strong. With his support, Helen's guidance, and a caring community, Zara wasn't just surviving, she was beginning to shine. The summer of 2008 bathed the fields of Fairfax, Virginia in brilliant sunlight, where Zara, the 11-year-old black girl, had called home for 3 years. Since being adopted by Michael Thompson, a white American United Nations pilot from a war-torn region of West Africa, Zara has overcome many challenges, from war-induced nightmares to prejudice at school. Her talent in engineering, nurtured through STEM clubs and science fairs, flourished. But a new curiosity had begun to stir within Zara's heart. She wanted to understand more about her homeland, her mother, and herself. The journey to reconnect with her roots began, bringing her closer to her heritage and a new kind of family. It all began one evening over dinner. Her hair neatly braided, Zara pushed aside her plate of mashed potatoes and asked, "Dad, in my village, what did people eat?" Michael, 45, paused, surprised by the question. He realized that although he had tried hard to help Zara adjust to American life, he knew little about her West African culture. I'm not sure, Zara," he admitted, ashamed. "But we can learn together. Do you want to tell me what you remember about your village?" Zara smiled, her eyes lighting up. There was fufu, made from cassava, eaten with peanut soup. Mama used to make it. The mention of her mother made Zara fall silent. She remembered only scattered fragments: her mother's hands braiding her hair, her singing by the fire, and her face before the village was attacked. Seeing the sadness in her eyes, Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. "You miss your mom, don't you?" he asked gently. Zara nodded, tears glistening. "I want to know who she was, Dad." Michael felt the weight of that longing. He had promised Zara that he would help her preserve the memory of her homeland, and now it was time to fulfill that promise. Michael turned to Mrs. Helen Carter, the black neighbor who had become Zara's mentor. With her silver hair and warm smile, Helen was a bridge between Zara and her African heritage. "I know a West African community in Alexandria," Helen said, her eyes lighting up. "They host a cultural festival every summer. We should take Zara there." Michael immediately agreed, grateful for Helen's guidance. He knew that as a white man, he needed the support of people like her to help Zara connect with her roots. That weekend, Michael, Zara, and Helen drove to Alexandria, where the West African Cultural Festival was in a park bursting with color. Stalls displayed vibrant kente fabrics. The air was rich with the aroma of jollof rice and egusi soup and the sound of djembe drums echoed, drawing people into traditional dances. Zara stood frozen, eyes wide. She gripped Michael's hand and whispered, "Dad, this feels like home." Michael smiled, though worried would these memories bring Zara pain or heal her. Helen brought Zara to a stall run by Mrs. Ayo, a middle-aged Nigerian woman. Beaming with joy, Ayo showed Zara how to tie a gele head wrap. "Sweet girl, you look like a Yoruba princess." Ayo laughed, making Zara blush. Ayo shared stories of West African women from Queen Nzinga to the resilient mothers of the villages. Zara listened, feeling an invisible thread connecting her to the past. When Ayo handed her a necklace made of wooden beads, Zara hugged the woman as if she had found a missing piece of her family. The highlight of the festival was a drum and dance performance. Zara, pulled onto the stage by her friend Aisha, the Ghanaian girl she had met years ago, hesitantly followed the rhythm of the drums. Under the sun, her tentative steps grew confident, as if her body remembered dances her mother once taught her. Michael, standing below, clapped and cheered, his eyes misty. He thought of Emily, who had loved ballet but never had the chance to perform. Zara was living and shining, and Michael's heart was whole. But reconnecting with one's roots wasn't just joy. One night after the festival, Zara sat in her room flipping through the notebook where she sketched memories. She found a small photograph Ayo had given her, taken by a journalist before the war in Zara's village. In the picture, a young woman stands by a river and looks like Zara's mother. Tears burst from Zara's eyes as she clutched the photo to her chest. Michael, hearing her quiet sobs, knocked and entered. "Zara, are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside her. Zara handed him the photo, her voice trembling. "This is Mama. I miss her, but I don't know who she was." Michael held Zara, feeling her pain. He told her what he had learned from Lieutenant Colonel Adekunle at the UN base. Zara's mother, Adama, had been a strong woman who organized the women in their village to resist violence. "Your mother was a hero, Zara," he said, "and you carry her strength." Zara nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. She wrote in her notebook, "Mama Adama, I will remember you." In that moment, Michael realized that helping Zara reconnect with her past wasn't just about restoring heritage. It was about healing. Helen and Ayo continued to support her. Ayo invited Zara to a West African cooking class where she learned to make fufu and peanut soup just like her mother used to. Helen gifted Zara a CD of music by Fela Kuti, the famous Nigerian artist, and taught her traditional Yoruba songs. Zara began to sing in her room, her voice soft but clear, and Michael would smile every time he heard it. He bought a picture frame and placed the photo of Adama on Zara's desk as a way to honor her mother. The West African community hosted a storytelling night at the end of summer. Encouraged by Helen, Zara shared a story about her village, the river, the singing nights, and her mother, Adama. When she finished, the entire room applauded. Ayo hugged Zara and said, "You are our pride." Sitting at the back of the room, Michael felt his heart swell. He knew Zara wasn't just reclaiming her heritage, she was finding a new community. As they returned to Fairfax, Zara held Michael's hand and said, "Dad, I want to keep Africa in my heart, but I also love it here." Michael smiled and hugged her. "You can keep both, Zara. I'll always be here to help you." Beneath the moonlight, they walked into their home, carrying a new connection with the past and the present, with West Africa and Virginia, between a black daughter and her white father. In the winter of 2009, a light blanket of snow covered Fairfax, Virginia, turning the fields around Michael Thompson's home into a glittering white carpet. Zara, the 12-year-old black girl, adopted from a war-torn region of West Africa, had become an irreplaceable part of his life. 4 years since they met amidst the rubble, Zara had overcome war-induced nightmares, reconnected with her cultural heritage, and revealed a blossoming talent for engineering. But what made Michael, the 46-year-old white man, most proud was the deepening father and daughter bond, forged through quiet moments and unexpected trials. It began on a chilly morning when Zara ran into the kitchen, eyes glowing. "Dad, today's my birthday," she exclaimed, holding up a misshapen but lovingly homemade cookie. Michael, making coffee, laughed out loud. 12 already. "You're growing up so fast," he said, hugging her. He had secretly prepared a gift, a small engineering toolkit perfect for Zara's repair hobby. When she opened the box and squealed with delight, Michael felt a warmth in his chest. He remembered the days when she clung to his hand like a lifeline. Now, Zara called him Dad, naturally reminding him how lucky he was every time. But fatherhood was never easy. Michael, once a UN pilot navigating helicopters through gunfire, now faced a different challenge, raising a black girl in a society still plagued by prejudice. One day, while dropping Zara off at the community center for a West African dance class, he overheard a woman whisper to her friend, "Why is he raising that kid? Doesn't it seem odd?" Michael held Zara's hand tighter, pretending not to hear, but the comment stayed with him. He worried that he, as a white man, might not be equipped to help Zara navigate the racial issues she was bound to face. Determined to be the best father, Michael turned to Mrs. Helen Carter, the black neighbor who had supported Zara since the beginning. "Helen, I want to understand better what Zara's going through," he said sincerely. With her silver hair and sharp eyes, Helen suggested he attend a cultural and racial awareness seminar at the local church. Michael agreed, though he initially felt out of place as one of the few white attendees. At the workshop, he listened to stories of racial discrimination, from judgmental glances to systemic barriers in education. One speaker, Mr. James, a black teacher, said, "Raising a black child is a commitment to protecting and uplifting their worth." Michael took careful notes, determined to apply what he learned. Meanwhile, Zara continued to flourish. She stayed active in the STEM club, where Mr. Jamal guided her in programming robots. She and her friend Aisha, the Ghanaian girl, began a new project, building an innovative house model powered by solar energy. Zara's teacher, Ms. Laura, selected her to represent the class at the district science fair. But not everyone supported her. Tommy, the boy who once teased Zara, spread rumors that she was being favored because she was an immigrant. Zara overheard and came home with a heavy heart. "Dad, did I do something wrong?" she asked. Sitting beside her on the sofa, Michael felt anger rise, but he kept his tone calm. "You didn't do anything wrong, Zara. Some people get jealous when you shine. Keep shining, okay?" He told her about Emily, his late daughter, who used to get teased for wearing glasses, but still won a school art contest. "Emily never gave up, and I know you won't either." Zara smiled and hugged him. "I'll try, Dad." For the first time, Michael's story about Emily wasn't wrapped in pain, but pride, and he realized that Zara was helping him heal old wounds. To strengthen their bond, Michael and Zara created shared routines. They fixed bikes in the garage, where Zara taught him how to wire simple circuits. On Saturday nights, they watched animated films with Zara, laughing as Michael mimicked the characters' voices. One day, Zara asked to make fufu, a West African dish she'd learned from Mrs. Ayo. Michael, clumsy in the kitchen, spilled cassava flour everywhere, making them both burst into laughter. As they ate, Zara said, "Dad, this is like how Mom used to make it." Michael nodded, feeling that Adama, Zara's mother, had also become a part of their home. The community played a significant role as well. Mrs. Helen invited them to a Christmas party at church, where Zara performed a West African dance with Aisha. Michael clapped as she spun to the beat of the drums, bursting with pride. Ayo, who had taught Zara to cook, gave her a notebook filled with West African recipes. "You're a bridge between two worlds, Zara," she said. Watching Zara smile brightly in the crowd, Michael realized she wasn't just his daughter, a beacon of hope for the whole community. But then came an unexpected challenge. One night, Zara came home from STEM class, pale-faced. She shared that Tommy and his friends had written on the whiteboard, "Zara, go back to Africa." Michael was stunned as if punched in the chest. He wanted to storm the school, but Zara held his hand and said, "Dad, I want to handle this myself." The next day, with support from Ms. Laura, Zara confronted Tommy in front of the class. "I'm here, and I'm better than you think," she said, her voice steady. Tommy looked down and mumbled an apology. When Zara recounted the story to Michael, he hugged her and said, "You're stronger than I'll ever be." As winter passed, Michael and Zara grew even closer. One evening, with snow falling outside the window, Zara brought a suspension bridge model into the living room. "Dad, this is the bridge I want to build in the village," she said. Michael looked at the model and saw the enormity of her dream. "We'll make it happen, Zara," he promised. As she rested her head on his shoulder, Michael felt they weren't just father and daughter anymore. They were a team, ready to face anything together. In the glow of the fireplace, he whispered, "I love you, Zara." And she replied, "I love you too, Dad." Autumn 2025. Bathed Fairfax, Virginia, in vibrant shades of red and gold. But within the wooden house of Michael Thompson, a dark cloud was gathering. Zara, the 28-year-old black woman adopted by Michael from a war-torn region of West Africa 2 decades earlier, was now a talented engineer, graduated from Virginia Tech and working at a renewable energy company. Michael, the 62-year-old white man, who had once flown helicopters through conflict zones as a UN pilot, was now only working part-time. His health, however, was no longer what it used to be. A crisis arrived, threatening to tear apart the father-daughter bond they had built over the years. It began one quiet Saturday morning as Michael and Zara had breakfast in the kitchen. Zara, her braids neatly tied, was excitedly describing her new project, a solar panel system for rural villages. Michael, his hair now completely white and his smile gentle, listened with pride. But there was a fatigue behind his eyes. Suddenly he started coughing violently, his face pale. Zara rushed to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, panic rising. Michael waved his hand, forcing a weak smile. "Just the flu, sweetheart. Don't worry." But when he stood, his legs buckled beneath him, and he collapsed unconscious to the floor. Zara screamed and called emergency services. At Fairfax Hospital, doctors diagnosed Michael with a rare blood disorder known as Verlinda syndrome, which caused a decline in blood cell production and could be fatal without treatment. Dr. Patel, an Indian-American hematology specialist, told Zara, "There's an experimental therapy, but it requires a compound extracted from coltan, a mineral only found in certain mines in West Africa." He noted that coltan, a highly conductive mineral, required advanced processing, and rebel groups and complicated regulations tightly controlled the supply. "Time is running out," Patel said gravely. "Mr. Thompson likely has only a few months left." The news hit Zara like a punch to the chest. Sitting by her father's hospital bed, watching him sleep with IV lines in his arms, she was heartbroken. The man who once flew through enemy fire, who had saved her from war, now looked frail and helpless. Zara held his hand, tears streaming down her face. She remembered the moment he had knelt before her in the rubble of West Africa and promised her a new life. Now she knew it was her turn to save the man who had given her everything. Zara called Mrs. Helen Carter, now 70, but still sharp-minded. "Auntie Helen, what should I do?" she asked, her voice trembling. With the wisdom of a well-lived life, Helen replied, "You have your mother Adama's strength and brilliance. If the path leads back to West Africa, then that's the road you must take." Helen reached out to Ayo, the Nigerian woman who had once taught Zara West African cooking and was now a member of an NGO in Alexandria. Ayo provided information about a coltan mine in Zara's homeland, but warned, it's in territory controlled by a warlord named Malik. Very dangerous. Zara also turned to her childhood friend Aisha, now a freelance journalist, with the same fiery spirit and curly hair. Aisha agreed to help Zara investigate the mine. Through her contacts, Aisha discovered that the site lay in an unstable region, where rebel forces and multinational companies constantly conflicted over control. "Zara, you need a detailed plan," Aisha advised, "and I'll go with you if you need me." Zara smiled gratefully, but deep inside she knew this was a journey she had to face alone. Back at the hospital, Michael had regained consciousness, weak but alert, and tried to protest Zara's plan. "Zara, you can't go," he whispered, his voice strained with pain. "It's too dangerous. I'd rather die than see you risk your life." But with the same unshakable determination that had once helped her survive the war, Zara gripped his hand tighter. "Dad, you saved me 20 years ago. Now it's my turn." Michael looked into her eyes and saw the same fierce light he'd seen in that 8-year-old girl in the rubble. He nodded, tears falling silently, unable to stop her. Zara began preparing. She contacted Jamal, her former STEM mentor, who is now chief engineer at a tech company. Jamal helped her study coltan refining processes and sent her technical documents on extracting the necessary compound without environmental damage. "You're the best engineer I know," Zara Jamal said. "If anyone can do this, it's you." Zara also called Ms. Laura, her old teacher, for advice. Now a school principal, Laura told her, "Zara, you've always been strong. Trust yourself." Meanwhile, the Fairfax community sprang into action. Helen organized a fundraising event at the church to help cover Zara's travel and equipment costs. Ayo and Aisha shared the story of Michael and Zara, drawing attention from the West African community in Alexandria. Some people sent money. Others sent prayers. Standing in the church, overwhelmed by the support of strangers, Zara choked back emotion. "Thank you. All," she said softly. "I will bring my father back." The night before her departure, Zara sat beside Michael's bed, holding a photograph of the two of them taken at a fall fair 18 years ago. "Dad, I'll come back," she promised, kissing his forehead. Michael, though weak, smiled. "I believe in you, Zara." As she walked out of the hospital, the moonlight lit the path ahead, guiding her back to West Africa, the place of her birth, the land where she had once been saved, and now where she would fight to save her father. With a heavy heart but unwavering resolve, Zara knew this wasn't just a mission. It was a journey of gratitude and love. In the fall of 2025, as the trees in Fairfax, Virginia turned a radiant gold, Zara, a 28-year-old black woman, stood at a fateful crossroads. Michael Thompson, the 62-year-old white man who had rescued her from war-torn West Africa 20 years earlier, now lay in the hospital battling a rare disease called Verlinda syndrome. To save him, Zara had to obtain coltan, a mineral found in her homeland, a place rife with danger and instability. With a heavy heart, but fierce determination, she set out, carrying her love for Michael and the strength of her engineering expertise. On the day of her departure, Zara stood outside the hospital, clutching a photo of her and Michael taken at a fall fair years ago. She kissed his forehead through the glass of the hospital room and whispered, "Dad, I'll come back." Though weak, Michael nodded, his eyes filled with trust. Zara turned away, a backpack on her shoulder, holding her laptop. Jamal's documents on coltan, refining, and a beaded wooden necklace from Ao, an emblem of her West African heritage. Her plane took off from Dulles Airport, carrying her back to the land she had left 2 decades ago, a journey that was not only to save a life, but also to confront her past. When the plane landed at the international airport in West Africa's capital, a wave of memories washed over Zara. The scent of red earth, the roar of motorbikes, and the vivid colors of the market reminded her of their childhood days with her mother Adama. But there was no time for nostalgia. She contacted Kwame, a local journalist who Aisha introduced. Kwame, 30 years old, with a warm smile and sharp eyes, had been Zara's childhood friend in the destroyed village. "You've changed a lot, Zara." He hugged her. But those determined eyes, they're still the same. Kwame took Zara to a small cafe where they laid out their plan. He explained that the coltan mine lay in a rural area 200 kilometers from the capital, under the control of a warlord named Malik. Malik, a former rebel commander, was known for his ruthlessness and pragmatism. He only worked with those who offered value. "You'll need a strategy," Kwame said, handing her a map and a list of checkpoints. With her technical background, Zara proposed a plan she would persuade Malik by offering environmentally friendly coltan refining technology, reducing the impact on local lands. Kwame nodded, impressed. "You are an engineer." The journey to the mine began with a dusty jeep ride over rough red earth roads. Zara sat beside Kwame, watching villages pass by, some still scarred by war, their ruined houses resembling the one she once lived in. A memory surged 8-year-old Zara, hiding in a wine cellar, hearing her mother's scream as the village was attacked. She clutched the wooden bead necklace and reminded herself, "I'm doing this for Dad." But deep down, she knew this journey was also about facing herself. At the first checkpoint, armed guards blocked their vehicle. A tall man in a tattered uniform demanded permits. With the skill of an experienced journalist, Kwame offered an envelope of cash and a few persuasive words. But when the guard's eyes settled on Zara, he frowned. "You're American?" he asked, suspicion in his voice. Zara stayed calm. "I was born here, but I live in America." "I came to help," she replied. Though hesitant, the guard waved them through. Kwame whispered, "You handled that well. But it'll only get harder from here." That night, they stopped at a small village. The locals, primarily women and children, welcomed them with jollof rice and herbal tea. An elderly woman, her face etched with time, looked at Zara and asked, "You're from Kwele village, aren't you? You look like Adama." Zara froze, her heart pounding. "You knew my mother?" she asked. The woman nodded and shared how Adama had once led the women of the village in resisting rebel attacks, protecting the children before she was killed. "You carry her spirit," she said, touching Zara's shoulder. Zara felt her mother's presence at that moment, giving her strength. But danger loomed. As the jeep continued, a group of armed men stopped them, claiming to be Malik's soldiers. They searched the vehicle and seized some of Zara's gear, including her laptop containing vital coltan refinement data. Though terrified, Zara kept her composure. "I need that equipment to help Mr. Malik make more money from coltan," she said, meeting the commander's eyes. He sneered, but handed the laptop back, ordering them to meet Malik the next day. Kwame, seated beside her, murmured, "You're brave, but don't test your luck again." That night, in a makeshift tent, Zara couldn't sleep. She opened her laptop, reviewed Jamal's documents, and wrote a detailed proposal for Malik, an extraction system that reduced pollution and improved yield by 20%. She knew this plan was her key to persuading him, but it was also a gamble. If it failed, she could lose everything. Looking at a photo of Michael on her phone, she whispered, "Dad, I won't give up." The wind howled through the tent, reminding her of the trials ahead. The next morning, Zara and Kwame arrived at a camp surrounded by barbed wire fences where Malik awaited. He was a middle-aged man with cold eyes, seated on a wooden chair flanked by guards. American girl. "What do you want?" Malik asked, his voice deep. Zara stood tall and replied, "I need coltan to save my father. In return, I'll help you mine more efficiently and protect the villagers' land." Malik narrowed his eyes, though a flicker of curiosity passed through them. Zara knew the real battle had only just begun. Under the scorching West African sun, Zara felt the full weight of her mission. She was no longer fighting for Michael, but for her homeland, too. The place where she was born, where her mother once fought, and where she now had to prove her worth. With her engineering skills and unshakable courage, Zara stepped into the confrontation, carrying hope and love for the man who had forever changed her life. Under the harsh West African sun, at the end of 2025, Zara, a 28-year-old black woman, stood before the compound, surrounded by barbed wire, where warlord Malik controlled the coltan mine. With her heart pounding and a laptop containing her coltan refinement plan in hand, Zara prepared to face the biggest challenge of her journey to save Michael Thompson, the white man who had adopted her from this war-torn land 20 years ago. Beside her stood Kwame, her childhood friend, and now a sharp-eyed journalist, visibly anxious. This journey was not only a mission to retrieve a life-saving mineral, it was a confrontation with Zara's past and her very identity. Malik's compound radiated menace. Armed guards eyed Zara and Kwame with suspicion, fingers on the triggers of their rifles. Malik, a middle-aged man with sharp features and cold eyes, sat on an old wooden chair, surrounded by ore crates. "American girl, what do you want from me?" he asked, his voice deep as thunder. Staying calm, Zara stepped forward and confidently replied, "I need coltan to save my father. In return, I offer technology to make your mining more efficient and protect the villagers' land." Malik smirked clearly, not easy to sway. Zara opened her laptop and presented the proposal she had prepared with Jamal's help, a coltan extraction system that minimized pollution and boosted output by 20% without depleting natural resources. She sharply explained it, emphasizing Malik's financial benefits and the local community's sustainability. "You keep your power and the villagers keep their land," she said, locking eyes with him. Malik stayed silent, tapping his fingers on the chair. Then he burst into a dry laugh. "You're bold, but you think I'll trust a girl from America?" He ordered his men to take her to the mine to prove it. On the way to the mine, Zara and Kwame passed a nearby village where women and children worked the dry, cracked fields. An older woman with braided hair like Zara's mother, Adama, approached them. "You're Zara Adama's daughter, aren't you?" she asked, her voice trembling. Zara froze, her heart pounding. The woman introduced herself as Amina, Adama's sister, who had survived the attack on their village. "Your mother gave her life to save the children," Amina said, tears streaming. "You have her courage." Amina handed Zara an old silk scarf that once belonged to Adama. "Wear it and you'll be strong." Zara hugged her tightly, feeling the past and present merge in her arms. At the coltan mine, Zara faced a brutal reality. The open pit site, torn red earth, and outdated machinery symbolized exploitation. Young laborers worked under the scorching sun. Standing nearby, Malik ordered, "Show me your technology in action." With Adama's scarf wrapped around her neck, Zara inspected an old extraction machine. Drawing on her knowledge from Virginia Tech, she made adjustments and added a portable filter she had brought to reduce toxic dust. Within an hour, the machine ran smoothly, producing a sample of purified coltan. The workers applauded, but Malik remained cold. "Not enough," he said. "I want to see a full system, and you must stay until it's done." Zara realized Malik was testing her, or perhaps intending to keep her as leverage. Kwame whispered beside her, "Be careful. He won't keep his word." But drawing on her mother's courage and love for Michael, Zara agreed to stay 3 days to set up the system. She worked tirelessly, guiding the workers on how to assemble the filters and optimize the machines. At night, in a small tent, she wrote in her journal, "Mother, I'm doing the right thing. Dad, I won't give up." The memory of her burning village and Michael's smile gave her strength. But danger struck suddenly. On the second night, a rival rebel group attacked the camp seeking to steal coltan. Gunfire erupted and dust clouded the air. Zara and Kwame hid in a storage bunker, listening to the chaos outside. In the dark, Kwame took her hand. "You remind me of Adama. She was never afraid." Zara clutched the silk scarf. "I am afraid. But for Dad, I have to be strong." Malik's forces eventually repelled the rebels, and Zara and Kwame emerged shaken but alive. The camp was damaged, and some of Zara's equipment was destroyed. The next morning, Malik summoned Zara. "You almost cost me my mine," he growled, but his eyes showed a glimmer of respect. "Your system works. I'll give you the coltan, but you must promise to come back and finish it." Exhausted, Zara nodded. "I promise, but for the villagers, not for you." Malik laughed loudly and ordered his men to pack a bag of purified coltan. Zara clutched the bag as if holding the hope to save Michael's life. Kwame patted her on the shoulder. "You did it, Zara." Before leaving the camp, Zara returned to Amina. She handed her a blueprint of the extraction system and said, "Auntie used this to protect the village." Amina hugged her and said, "You are Adama's pride." As the jeep rolled away, Zara looked back at the village, feeling part of her heart remain there. She wasn't just bringing coltan back to Michael. She was getting the strength of her mother, her homeland, and herself. Beneath the West African sky, Zara knew the journey wasn't over. She had to return to America before it was too late. At the end of 2025, the West African sun still blazed as Zara, a 28-year-old black woman, left warlord Malik's compound clutching the bag of refined coltan, the hope of saving Michael Thompson, the white man, who had adopted her from this war-torn land 2 decades earlier. Beside her was Kwame, the local journalist, with a reassuring smile, though both were exhausted after their tense encounter with Malik and the rebel attack. The journey back to the U.S., carrying the precious mineral, was the final leg of a long ordeal, but also the moment where Zara could prove her love and gratitude for Michael. The jeep rumbled down rough red dirt roads toward the capital, where they would catch a flight back to America. Zara tightly held the bag of coltan, feeling as if she carried Michael's fate. Around her neck, the silk scarf from her mother Adama, gifted by Amina, fluttered gently, a talisman of protection. Kwame glanced at her. "You did the impossible, Zara," he said. "Adama would be proud." Zara smiled, but her heart was heavy. She knew time was slipping away. Dr. Patel had warned her that Michael only had a few weeks left without treatment, but danger still lurked. Local soldiers stopped the jeep at a checkpoint near the capital and demanded to inspect their cargo. With a greedy gleam in his eye, one officer spotted the coltan bag. "This is contraband," he declared, though Zara could tell he wanted a bribe. Kwame tried to negotiate, but the officer raised his rifle. With calm forged from every trial she had endured, Zara stepped forward. "This is to save a life," she said firmly. "If you take it, you're killing a father." She pulled out the proposal she had presented to Malik, pointing at his official seal. "Malik authorized this. Are you ready to defy him?" The officer hesitated, then waved them through. Kwame exhaled in relief, whispering, "You are Adama's daughter." Another challenge awaited at the capital's airport customs required a special export permit for coltan, a rule often manipulated by vested interests. Time was running out, and the plane was about to board. Zara called Aisha, her journalist friend in the U.S. Aisha, using her network, reached out to an NGO that had supported Zara during a fundraising event. Within 2 hours, the organization, thanks to Ayo's advocacy, emailed a temporary permit. Zara hugged Kwame before boarding the plane. "Thank you. I couldn't have done this without you." Kwame smiled. "Now go save your father, Zara." The 14-hour flight to the U.S. felt like a lifetime. Zara sat by the window, staring at the clouds, clutching the bag of coltan. Memories of the journey flooded back Amina's resolute eyes, Malik's ruthless challenge, and Michael's voice promising he'd always be there. She opened her journal and wrote, "Mother, I kept my promise. Dad, I'm on my way." The wooden bead necklace brushed against her chest, reminding her of the strength of Adama, her homeland, and her resolve. The plane landed at Dulles Airport in Virginia on a cold morning. Exhausted but determined, Zara raced straight to Fairfax Hospital. Dr. Patel was already waiting. "You arrived just in time," he said urgently. Zara handed over the bag of minerals, her heart pounding, as the technicians refined the compound needed for Michael's treatment. She sat by his bed, holding his cold, frail hand. "Dad, I did it," she whispered, tears falling. Though unconscious, Michael gently squeezed her hand, sensing her presence. The next few hours were a whirlwind of anxiety and hope. Doctors administered the coltan-derived compound and closely monitored his vitals. Zara refused to leave the hospital, with Helen and Aisha taking turns bringing her coffee and food. Helen, with her silver hair, embraced Zara. "You are as strong as your mother and as loving as your father, always full of energy." Aisha recounted how the West African community in Alexandria had gathered to pray for Michael. "You're not alone, Zara," she said. Zara nodded, feeling the power of the family she had built along the way. Finally, after 48 tense hours, Dr. Patel entered with a smile. "The compound is working. His blood cells are recovering." Zara burst into tears and hugged Helen tightly. She ran into Michael's room and found him awake, weak but conscious. "Zara, you came back," he whispered, voice raspy. Zara embraced him, tears soaking his hospital gown. "Dad, I promised I wouldn't let you go." Michael smiled, placing a trembling hand on her cheek. "You're my miracle." At that moment, Zara felt her journey had come full circle. She hadn't just saved Michael, she had found her strength. The strength of Adama, the soul of her homeland. The enduring love between a father and daughter that defied all boundaries. As autumn sunlight filtered through the hospital window, Zara sat beside Michael and told him stories of Amina Malik and the village she had left behind. Michael listened intently, pride shining in his eyes. "You're the bravest girl I know," he said. Zara looked out the window at the falling golden leaves. She knew she had changed, not just an engineer, the girl rescued from war, but a woman who carried two worlds within her, West Africa and America, past and present. With the coltan that saved Michael's life and Adama's scarf still resting on her shoulder, Zara felt ready for the future, where she would keep fighting, not just for her family, but for those who needed her most. In the winter of 2025, icy winds swept through Fairfax, Virginia, but inside Michael Thompson's wooden house, the light of hope glowed warmly. Zara, the 28-year-old black woman, had returned from West Africa with coltan and saved Michael, the white man, who had adopted her from a war zone 20 years earlier. After weeks of treatment, Michael slowly recovered, and their story inspired the community. Zara and Michael's journey did not end in triumph alone, but opened a new beginning shaped by love, gratitude, and legacy. In the early days of Michael's recovery, Zara barely left the hospital. She sat beside his bed, recounting her journey, Amina's village, her confrontation with Malik, and the silk scarf from her mother Adama. Michael, now 62, his hair snow-white and voice still faint, held her hand, pride shining in his eyes. "You're my miracle, Zara," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Zara smiled through tears. "You're mine, Dad," she replied, remembering when he knelt in the rubble and promised her a new life. When Michael was well enough to return home, the Fairfax community welcomed him with a celebration at the local church organized by Helen Carter, now 70. With silver hair and a gentle smile, Helen stood before the crowd and declared, "Zara and Michael are proof that love knows no boundaries." Aisha, Zara's journalist friend of Ghanaian descent, snapped a photo of her hugging Michael and posted it online with the caption, "One family, two worlds, one heart." Ayo, the Nigerian woman who had helped along the way, brought jollof rice and whispered to Zara, "You are the pride of West Africa." Surrounded by people who had become family, Zara's heart brimmed with joy. But Zara didn't stop at saving Michael. Her journey to West Africa had changed her. She realized that her homeland, scarred by war, yet full of resilience, was where part of her truly belonged. With help from Aisha and Kwame, Zara founded the Adama Scholarship Fund to support West African children in studying engineering and science. She reconnected with Amina, her aunt in the village, and sent her documents for the sustainable coltan extraction system she had designed for Malik. Aunt Amina used this to protect the village, Zara wrote. Amina replied, "You are our hope." Zara also returned to her engineering job at a renewable energy company. She led a project developing affordable solar batteries for rural communities, inspired by the dry, sun-baked fields of West Africa. Jamal, her former STEM mentor turned colleague, said, "You're changing the world, Zara." She smiled, knowing that every success was rooted in Michael, the man who gave her the chance to dream big. Each night, she returned home, cooked fufu with Michael, and laughed as he clumsily rolled the cassava dough. Though still recovering, Michael found a new purpose. He began writing a memoir chronicling their journey from when he found Zara in a war zone to her journey to save him. "This isn't just my story," he told her. "It's yours, the story of a girl who broke every boundary." Michael sent the manuscript to Ms. Laura, Zara's former teacher, and now a school principal. Deeply moved, Laura suggested using it in her curriculum to teach about courage and family. "Zara is a role model for my students," she said. Support from Fairfax and Alexandria poured in. Helen organized an exhibit at the church, displaying Zara's childhood drawings, West African villages, bridges, and her mother, Adama. Aisha produced a short film about Zara's journey, which premiered at the West African Cultural Festival and drew hundreds. After watching it, a Nigerian boy approached Zara and said, "I want to be an engineer like you." Zara knelt, handed him a notebook, and said, "Start drawing your dreams." But not everything was perfect. Michael, though recovering, still required regular checkups, and Zara worried every time he looked tired. One night, as snow fell outside the window, she found him sitting in the living room, gazing at a photo of Emily, his late daughter. "Dad, are you okay?" Zara asked, sitting beside him. Michael gave a sad smile. "I miss Emily. But I know she and you share something in common. You both made me a better man." Zara hugged him, whispering, "I miss Mama Adama too. But I have you." In that quiet moment, they realized that past pain never entirely disappears. but present love can help heal it. By spring 2026, Zara and Michael stood in the field behind their home, where they used to walk when she was a child. With Adama's silk scarf draped over her shoulder, Zara said, "Dad, one day, I want to go back to West Africa and build the bridge I dreamed of." Michael, eyes bright, replied, "I'll be there even if it's just to wave a flag and cheer you on." They laughed, looking toward the horizon where sunlight spilled through the oaks. Zara felt both worlds, West Africa and America, past and future, blending within her. She was no longer just the little girl who had been rescued, but a strong woman, carrying the legacy of Adama and the love of Michael. As the sun set, Zara held Michael's hand and whispered, "Thank you, Dad, for everything." Michael embraced her and said, "Thank you for giving me a family." Their story, written in courage, gratitude, and borderless love, would continue to inspire like a flame that never dies in the hearts of those who hear it.